Good morning. I'm Bradley McCalister. This is Spirocraft's Monday Methods. Almost the end of the year. Yay! Big clap. Hope everybody's doing well. Let's see who's popping in here. Art's in here, and Alfred's in here, and Don, and Brian. Good morning, gentlemen. You know how I always talk about live streams being always exciting? So this morning, I thought I had a crisis. Turns out, for whatever reason, on the computer that runs the main software, the encoding software that makes what you see come through to you, would not connect to its Ethernet port. And I was like, oh my, what am I going to do? It's a laptop that I had taken away. I took it to Christmas up to the folks, and I don't know what the deal was, but it wouldn't connect. And so I went off and had some breakfast. And when I came back, well, it was working. So that was good, but I was thinking I was going to have to bring Wi-Fi repeater out here and change things around, but I didn't have to, so crisis averted. Good morning, Dad. Good morning, Mark. Hope you guys are doing well. Mark, I hope you heal up soon. Don't know what happened, but it looks like it wasn't fun, so we hope you get better soon. Today, going to play with the birdhouses. Haven't messed with these birdhouses in a long, long time. This one that you see here and that I used for the pictures the other day, it's actually... if I show you the truth about it, the roof is broken all to pieces, but it made for a good picture because it was one that had been finished except for the bottom. And I'll show you in the overhead here. It's kind of broken and whatnot, but you couldn't see that before. So it pictured up well for our purposes here. That's a good thing. So these I was making these birdhouses when I first started doing color. When I started doing art and craft shows and things like that and putting stuff in galleries. Hey, good morning, Luigi. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well over there. When I first started doing the art shows and craft shows in the galleries, and I was like everybody else who had started out, and all my wood was just, natural brown wood. And then I discovered color in some martini glasses I did as a test. And I kept expanding and expanding on my color. And one of the things I came up with was doing these colored decorative birdhouses. They're not really intended to be a functioning birdhouse. But I took my color idea and I added, as you see, the my spiderweb effect with the dyes. And I'd never seen anybody else do it before. Doesn't mean nobody else has, but I hadn't seen it. And it was pretty cool. And you don't have to do it just on the birdhouses. I've done it on lots of different things. I also brought out, and I'm going to hold this one up underneath the camera. This is just a bowl. And it's the same type of technique. Look at all those lights shining on that in that crazy thing. Using the dye, the aniline dyes on the wood before any finish, and then putting the aniline dye in between layers of lacquer. I'm going to have to hold that down because it's a little out of focus there. And there's a lot of different techniques, and you've seen me use some of these before, but I don't think I've ever used the spiderweb chasing air-blown technique. And so that's what I'm going to do today. This is one of my favorite pieces here, and one of these days I'll actually finish it. But there's a lot of different ways to go about this. And so I got all kinds of goodies out here today. And again, I was kind of running around a little bit at the last minute, trying to get all the pieces and parts together after I had, put out the fire on my computer crisis. So I shouldn't be too much of a craziness, but I may have to rumble around, but that's nothing new really for me. Good morning, Land. Good to see you. All right, let me get this guy out of the way here, since I don't really want to mess it up. So what we're working with today, for the most part, other than what's going to be the this is going to be the lid, the roof, and the base for one. This is, I believe this, of course, is sycamore because I've got so much of it. But all the wood here is aspen. And aspen is my favorite for coloring. And I ran over to one of my boxes of junk. Or not, I shouldn't say junk. How can I say that about my work? I ran over and got myself a piece of aspen that was bare, as I didn't have any aspen that was completely clean. And I just hit it with the sander really quick. It's getting a little washed out, but we'll put some color in here in a second. Just a piece of aspen, an old aspen bowl, natural edge bowl. I just wanted to show you where I start the process. And so to give you the explanation, and I'm going to move this guy over here. And of course, it dawned on me, I also brought in a teal piece, which I know that when I see it in there, you're going to see probably the gray wall. I keep forgetting about greens and colors, teals in my chroma key, but we'll play with that one anyway. What we start with, bare wood, right? Bare white wood. And when we use the aniline dyes, we can, and I'm going to use today to be quick, I've got some yellow here and some aerosol. When we use the aniline dyes, I don't think these have rattles in them, no. Hey Joe, good morning. When we use the aniline dyes in the first coat, in the base coat that goes on, if we add our second color, and let's say today is going to be black, if we add our second color of black with a paintbrush, etc., when the first color is wet, we will get a kind of a fuzzy line or splatter, if you will. And in that other piece I showed you, you saw some of those kind of fuzzy dots, and that's splatters when it was wet. And it depends on how you go about it, what the timing is. So if we put wet on wet dye, that's the best way I can think of it, use a painting term, wet on wet dye, you'll get more like a watercolor bleed effect. If we let the first color of dye dry and then we add our second color, we'll get a much cleaner line. And I've got a variety of little brushes here and things like that. So we're going to kind of go through the different steps to represent everything. And we'll be spraying some lacquer, building the layers, and then at the end we'll make a top and a bottom for one of these guys. I'm not sure which one, just to show you how to fit the tops and the bottoms. So, hey, Brian's in there, or Morning Sandy, he says. Okay, so first things first, I got that shaken up. I need to get myself a little bit of black, because I want to use the black. It shows up the best against anything, and on the yellow will be great. So a little bit of black. Now, when it comes to the brushes, I've got, these are just some little cheap ones I had down in the drawer. Just dime store, cheap brushes, real small. I wouldn't call them artist brushes, they're just small brushes. I do have good quality brushes, but they're put away. And then I have got the usual China chip bristle brushes, the Harbor Freight specials. And if I wanted to do a lot of coverage, I just use the 2-inch. But I like these kind of brushes. One, they're disposable. Two, they're cheap. And three, they're really fuzzy. And a lot of times I like to get a little fuzzy profile and all those lines and these streaks. If I bring you in close, and I'm going to jump around a lot here today. If I bring you in close on this guy, you'll see these big long brush strokes. Okay? And some of them are big and some of them are real small down through here. That's all done with one of these brushes. All the squiggles are done with the compressed air after the fact. So I'm going to show you the little trick that I have done over the years. And it's really high-tech stuff. Some of you may have seen it before. I'm looking at the replay or the delay there, and I see that it looks like I gave myself a little too much exposure on that middle camera. But oh well. And I didn't change the camera when I changed that overhead shot. So I'll change the camera like I should have before. So here's my little China brush. I take and I bend the sides away and I cut out the middle. Just chop the middle away. I know it's all of 49 cents, right? And if I do it right, which I didn't quite do it right, I left a little bit in the middle. What I want is the two legs. And if you'll use a worn out brush, this is even better. And I should have this on some other color so you can see it. There you go. You can kind of see what I'm up to there. And it's kind of the rougher and the rattier it is, the more you'll get the effect. So there, now you can see I've cut the center out of this guy, right? And I've got some little bristles off to the side here, and that's okay. That's kind of part of what I want to get some of the different effects or patterns. Now the key when we're using a brush like this, or even one of the small brushes with the dies, is there's a couple of factors that control what it looks like. How wet or dry the brush is, so how much dye we load onto the brush, and then how much dye is, how wet the brush is when we put it on the wood. That's one of the key factors. How much pressure we apply. Is it a heavy pressure or a light pressure? And then how fast or slow. So those three factors combined, in whichever ratio you combine them, have a control over the type of brush strokes that you get on the piece as you do it. Now the thing about this first stage is where people have most of the problem. You can't go back. So whatever you do when we put this dye on, you don't get to take it off at this stage. When you put it on, say we'll spray this piece yellow, and then when we put some black on here, we own that color. Unless you want to let it dry and sand it all off, whatever you do then, you own. And part of the learning curve is that over time, and you're going to make some really ugly stuff, okay? Over time, you'll kind of learn how to repair, or when you make a stroke and you don't like the way it came out, do some other strokes to it or some other effects to it around it, that what looked like an error becomes now a decent looking piece or even a good piece. So don't fret if your first strokes and you think, oh God, I really messed that up. Just do some more additional things to it. You might grab a little brush, different, just try different things. If it just totally goes south on you, paint the whole thing, some other color, paint it black and do iridescent paint on it, or dye the whole thing black, and it'll be fine. Move on to the next piece. So we'll see if that happens today or not here. But I wanted to have my brushes ready, and so I do. I got my black dye here, and so this is just a yellow aerosol, and I'm going to do it. I'll go to the overhead, and hopefully, like I said, I've got it a little washed out with the extra light in here today, but I was trying to get the colors to match. And so this is just the yellow aerosol, and there's some brush hairs in there. And what I want to do is I want to get this well done. I'm going to put a few strokes of black on here while it's wet, and you'll see hopefully what I'm talking about. So I'll take a small brush, reach over here into my black, and I'm just going to do a little squiggle line, and you'll see that line will start to get fuzzy. It won't be real sharp and crisp. And I'll do another one over here, just whatever's, and it's really wet down here in the middle still. And you'll see that it won't have a clean, distinct, get the light to do right on that. It won't have a clean, distinct edge. It'll be kind of fuzzy, kind of like watercolor, all right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Now the dots, I talked about the dots on the other piece. If you want the dots, and we'll do this here, I'll take the brush, I'll load it with dye, and I'll just tap it on something, and we'll get that splatter effect. And those splattered dots will get fuzzy. They won't be sharp and crisp and clean while this is still wet. So I'm going to do that as well. So I'm going to go back to the overhead here for you. And while it's still wet, I'll just take the handle of another brush and just get some dots to tap on here. And these dots, they'll have a bit of a fuzzy edge to them. All right? And that's because people say, well, how do you get those fuzzy looking dots? Well, if things are wet, and you can see how this in the middle here is really running and bleeding, And if you like that look, that's great. But say you don't like what's going on right here. You just take and pull that out. Pull another leg out of there. Pull a leg up here. Pull some of this away. Okay. So don't be afraid if you think you've got too much concentration of dye in one place. Just take and pull it out and add to the effect. Okay, if it's too overpowering. And you can come in here at any point. Like say this line, you don't really like this line the way it looks right here. Just come in from the line and then come out. Do another little guy out here. Just whatever, wild and crazy. Okay, now we're going to let this dry for a little bit. I could heat it with the heat gun, but I think we'll just set it off and let it dry because I want to show you the difference when we come back and put dye on this again with the small brush when the first coat has dried. All right, so to save time, because we can do some more over here, we're just going to set that off. All right, so let's see. Questions? So Mark says he likes the purple one. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Art, brush hairs equals texture. That's correct, Art. And Lan says if it dries early, can you clear coat and continue? If you clear coat, you're going to the next stage. Okay? Which is what we're going to do now. So if you clear coat it, you seal the wood. And once you seal the wood, you don't get to have that flowing effect, and it's not going to, it won't soak in. It's going to sit on top of the lacquer, which is what brings us to the second stage. Okay? So if I was done with this, and when I was done with this, this would then get lacquered. It'd get a coat of clear lacquer. And we want to seal it. And that's what allows us to do this second phase here. So I'm just going to set this guy up here. And I really was going to work with this teal one. And I don't know, I'm going to see if it looks crazy in the camera or not. See if the chroma key makes it look. It's got a little shimmer to it there. You can see a little bit of gray. You can kind of see the window in there because anything that's close to the green that I'm working with is going to do that to us. That's just my bad. I keep pulling things. I like teals. I like green. But I think we can work with this to make it happen. So the next thing that I can do, and I've got my compressor hooked up, and I've got it outside today on its own circuit, so hopefully it doesn't trip anything in here. I've got a real small nozzle on my compressor. Okay, you can also use your airbrush. If you've got an airbrush, that's actually much more controllable. My airbrushes are still off over in storage in one of the vehicles because I ran out of room, so I didn't bring them in. Airbrush works great for this. Compressed air works well, and you want to have pretty good pressure at the tip. All right, so here's the key. When we put the black dye or any dye on top of the lacquer, we put the dye on top of the lacquer, it won't soak in. It just beads up. And I'm going to backtrack here real quick for just a second because I forgot to tell you something. When I sand the wood, I only sand to 220. Okay? Don't go to the 400 and 600 and all that crazy stuff. You want the pores to be open to take the dye. You want it to be smooth and not have any, turning marks or anything like that. And you don't want to have any big, bad sand swirls in it. But just sand it nice and uniform, but leave it at 220 because we're going to be building a film finish anyway. All right? So here's our piece down here, and I'm going to go to the overhead. What's going to happen is the dye is just going to bead up. It's not going to soak in. It's just going to sit on the surface. Now, you can use the big brush. You can use a little brush, whichever ones you want. We'll start with a little brush, and I'll just take a small brush, and you'll see now this it goes on there, and it's going to make a liar out of me today, probably. So I used to do this with a water base, which dries a lot slower. This alcohol base dries pretty quick. This is the first time I've actually done it with the alcohol base. So I'm on a little bit of a learning curve here. I'm getting a completely different look. Not that it's bad, but what I'm seeing is I need to wet the surface with more dye as I go. So let's put a really wet batch on there. Okay, so it's an interesting curve. Like I said, I haven't done this in a number of years, and I haven't done it with the alcohol base. The water base wouldn't dry nearly as fast. Hey, Rich is in here. So we put a squiggle on. So that's what we're getting with the little brush. Now let's keep on playing with this, because there's a beauty to this, is that if it's like the water base and I've got my denatured alcohol here, we can take this completely off if we don't like it. So I'm going to get this thing really wet now. I'm going to get my double brush out, and I'm going to do some crazy, I'm putting a lot of dye on there. And hopefully this will be a great exhibit of, so that's much more color than I really wanted, but it may be what I may like it after the fact, but I want to let this dry. Hey, my thumb made a great little stencil right there, didn't it? And I probably need to put some gloves on, because I'm going to show you how, if you don't like it, at least in the water base, and I'm going to try this, you know me, I try things live that I haven't done before, so test and, before I get out here, why would I do that? It's much more exciting to see if you can crash and burn and recover. With the water-based dyes that I've used in the past, if I didn't like it, I could take a paper towel and water and just wipe it off. Now, I've got a feeling this alcohol-based dye may kind of smear around. We're going to find out. But let's say I didn't like that look. Let's see what happens here. I had my alcohol out, and then I put it away. I don't know what I was thinking. Let me give you an overhead while I walk over here and get my alcohol back. I had 2 bottles of it out here. All the while our this piece is drying down, and it dries quickly. So we'll be coming back to this here in a few minutes, and I may jump back and forth between the yellow and the blue. So I want to show you this, on the first round here. Then we're going to go to one that's got more lines on it, but I want to see if this is going to be a mess or what's going to happen here. Yeah, with a little bit of work. Again, it would take quite a bit of paper towel, but if you don't like what you got, it would take a little extra cleaning with this alcohol-based style, and it's got a little bit of resin in it. But you can remove what you have done. All right. Now it's also, I see, there's another effect. There's always something comes from an accident. There's some little divots in here, so I picked up a little bit of color there, just some flashes of color, and that's my last paper towel. I'm going to be in trouble. I may have to run in the house or use dirty ones. I got plenty around here. But that's one of the keys. If you don't like what you did, you can take it off. Again, this alcohol base, this is the Chromacraft, and it does have a little bit of resin in it, and it dries really quick, but you can come back and take that off of there. All right, so as long as you haven't done the next step, which is to add another layer of lacquer to it, you are completely safe. So another thing we can try here, I've never done before, we might just take the dye. I'm always looking for new effects, all right? Since I've never worked with this one before, let's take this, loosen this up. And I don't know if this would look good or bad. We get a funny kind of swirls, just like you just didn't finish cleaning it. But layers of texture are what are important, okay? And those are runs over there. So I'm going to do this again right in here. I won't do it so heavy. And we'll let this dry. And then I'll spray a coat of lacquer on it. So Just some drops. And like I said, I'm finding with this I have to go quick. It looks like I need to do long squiggle lines. So I actually like a water-based dye better for this. That's what I'm finding here today. Like I say, this is the first time I've done it with this. It dries so fast that it's too fast for me to be able to chase it around. Usually I could chase this around. So I'm going to recommend you to use a water-based aniline dye, and you can find them. I've got them next door in powders. But you can find a water-based dye, and it's going to work better for this. And then the previous ones were done with a water-based dye. Because whatever the resin is that's in this is kind of locking it down. You see, you get some of the effect, but not nearly what I was hoping for. And that's just the way it is. Live and learn, right? And black's not the only color. You can use other colors on here if you want to. So you get some of a fuzzy effect, but not as much as I would like. I would be much happier with the water base that doesn't dry instantly. That's what I found here. So lesson learned. No harm, no foul. It's all good. I'm not going to worry about it. But this alcohol base does dry real quick. Still, the technique is the same. It's just, I'm going to say, don't use an alcohol-based dye for this particular type of project where you want to chase it with the spider webs. Use a water base. Because you can chase it around and around and around with the water base. All right? So we're going to set this guy off and let it dry for a little bit. We'll set it up here. And this piece now, the yellow piece, is back to be, it's probably dried now. Probably pretty close to dry. And we're going to put some black lines on it with our little brush. Go back to the overhead. Back to the overhead. There we go. And you'll see that they should stay much cleaner and crisper and sharper. So I'll just come out here. And again, these are really, really cheap brushes. If you use a fine-tipped artist brush, you'll get a nice clean line. These brushes are pretty cheap. No, they're super cheap. They came from the dollar store. But the edges of these right in here, that won't bleed because that first color is dry. All right? And what else am I going to do with this guy? Do I want to do anything else to it? Let's have fun just because I'm here and because it is. We've got plenty of stuff. I'm gonna throw some red on here too, just to have a little fun. Next time I do this, I will do it with the water-based dyes. The powders that I have next door, the powders, they never go bad. Once you mix it, it does. The water-based dye does work much better for this type of project. Let's put some red on here. And we're still in the overhead. This is always, I kind of like the Jackson Pollock effect on this stuff. You know, and it's just me. And then like I got that big blob of red there, so we can just come out of that with some lines. And then that, you know, it starts to look like an octopus or a man running through the yard there. So it's all just completely random, abstract approach that I like to take here. But these lines are staying much cleaner because that first one is dry. And with a real fine brush, you will get a real crisp, fine line. You could also use, like, say, the Chromacraft fine detail art paint, the airbrush and fine detail paint. You could actually use a paint, and some of them are translucent. Matter of fact, since I said that, I've got some right over here. Let's try it. So I'm going to go back to the overhead here real quick. I love to experiment live because this is exactly what you would do in your shop if you were working. You'd be trying to figure out what was working and what wasn't working. So here's the red. I want to find another color that's transparent here. This should be a blue. Okay. This may be the ugliest Aspen bowl I've ever made, or not, when we get done here. So this is the Chromacraft fine detail and airbrush paint, and it is designed to be able to be brushed, you know, with a brush, or thinned down just a tick and sprayed with an airbrush. And I got lots and lots of little cups here today. Let's see if I got this too clogged up or not. I don't need a lot. Okay. So the beauty of this paint is that it's transparent. It's also, there's opaques and it's transparent. And it's just a little bit of blue here, and I'm going to switch you back over to the overhead camera. Can you show red dots, that splatter technique again? Sure, I can do red dots. Absolutely. Since we're here, we'll load up some red. Just take any old thing. A little bit more on the brush. My brother did a pair of skis for me like this years ago. He splatter painted and squiggle painted a pair of skis. And this was 30 years ago now, I think. And he used to do it on the side in Aspen for extra money. People pay him $300 a ski to do his squiggle and splatter paints. So there's some red dots. Now they won't be as fuzzy. So we've got red and black, and now we're going to have blue on here. We're having a ball. I'm having a ball. All right, so here's some blue transparent paint. Again, this is a really cheap brush. It doesn't have a fine tip. Okay, so let's see what happens when we come in here. And it may have to be thin. These brushes are really cheap, but I've never actually tried to paint with them before. Definitely has a different look to it. It's transparent, but it's more opaque than the dyes are in this particular case. It looks almost more like the black, but you do see the blue in it. Now, when we put some clear on this after a while, you will see those colors. And for fun, I'm going to take this blue paint in my doubled up brush. So I'm going to load this thing up, and I just put a little bit in this cup right here. And I'm just loading up my double-ended brush. All right. And we're just going to go for broke on this, and we're just going to do some crazy, quick and light. If we can get that movement going. That was a heavy one. And if you think it's too wet, come over to, I'm just over here cleaning it off the brush, drying the brush out some. And you can even pull it out of that big spot. And as this brush dries out, you get lighter and lighter wisps. It might actually be kind of cool when it's all said and done. And so, and I know if I can't hold it up too close, you can see these when the brush is dry. I don't have a big area, but you get really light wisps of color going onto the piece. And what I'm doing is I'm pulling these big spots down because I want to spray this with lacquer, so you'll see what happens after the first effect. Mountain View Turning, hello. Thank you for dropping in. Where are you from, Mountain View? And what's your name? We appreciate you coming in today. So this one looks pretty crazy. All right. So we're going to set this off to dry. We'll just set it over there on the side. So that was a paint, and it's an acrylic paint. It's a water-based paint. It'll dry really quick as well. So the next stage would be that we would then spray lacquer on the piece, all right? And so like with this purple one here, now this guy's kind of rough. It's been laying around, and it's been spider webbed. And I don't think there's another coat of lacquer on top of it. So I would take my clear lacquer, and I'm going to shake some up here. Actually, is this guy dry? No, this guy's not dry yet. And this lacquer will dry pretty quick. Lacquer is still my favorite finish because it's so malleable and friendly to work with. Now, one way I could do this is I could have it stuck on the, and let's do that. Am I done making a huge mess? I think I'm gonna put a chuck on here on the lathe and let it spin. Then we don't want a heavy coat of lacquer because we want it to dry quick, and we're going to build a layer. There we go. I repainted part of the headstock yesterday on this. I was tired of it looking horrible. So to get a hold of the inside of this, I think we'll use, this will work. We're just got to hold this guy. This is an easy chuck. Let's see here. Humidity. So this chuck was in the toolbox, and it's amazing how humid it is here in South Georgia. It's just like wet moisture in there. I need to open that up and let that dry out. That's crazy. Just changing, condensation changing. So just a little quick hold on there. While I'm here, let's talk about these bodies. So I haven't even talked about how I turn the body. Let's tell you what. Let me put a coat of lacquer on here, then I'll talk about how I turn the body. Let's do that. Let me jump back over to the overhead there. Yeah, I'll get a little bit of lacquer on my lathe, on my jaws. I think I'll just do it by hand. So what we do is when we add the layers of lacquer, we can build our next layer of color on here. And that will give us the depth. And you can do this until your heart's content. And it doesn't have to be a perfect coat of lacquer. It doesn't have to be super shiny and gloss, because the lacquer always melts into the next coat. Okay? Now this one's got some great squiggles in it. I mean, it's pretty cool. All right? So we're going to let that dry while I get to breathe lacquer fumes. One of my favorites. How do I make these bodies? These start out as, these were actually just, these are limbs. These are end grain pieces. So the aspen trees, I had tons of them in Colorado, and I actually drilled these with a Forstner bit. I have a 3-inch or 3.5-inch Forstner bit, and I would put the Forstner bit in the tailstock and just come in and drill these guys out. All right? It's quick. It's easy. Be careful. When you use a large Forstner bit, hey, Doug, he dropped in. Yeah, I didn't get too much lacquer on you, Chuck. When you use a large Forstner bit, it puts a lot of torque on the tailstock. And the pin that's in your quill takes all that torque. And so I've got a 16-inch Delta that's out at the shop in Colorado, and I managed to completely destroy the groove in the quill that the pin goes in and the pin. And I filed it and I changed the pin, but I pretty much destroyed that quill because I did a bunch of these. And drilling with all that torque was not the best idea. I think maybe drill a smaller hole all the way through if you want to, and then go ahead and turn them in a normal fashion that you would turn them, and you'll be fine. But that's how I got the main bodies just hollowed out. And then the shape, I just turned, you know, base whatever I felt like. Like I say, they kind of, however big the limb was, you can see they're different sizes. But that's how I got the quick part of the inside of them done, was just using a Forstner bit. And again, be careful with that, because you can damage your lathe. Now, you could drill them on a drill press. Hey, that'd probably be a better idea. Didn't do it at the time. I don't think I had one that was big enough. You get scared using large Forstner bits? Yeah, because it's a lot of force. There's a lot of torque going on there. So that's how the bodies were hollowed out quickly. I do have a drill bit for drilling a hole. Again, these are decorative, so I drilled a hole. You know, you could put the perch on here if you wanted to. I never did, because it really wasn't being used as a birdhouse. It's just kind of being decorative. And the lids, the tops and the bottoms, the bases, I just paint black with black lacquer. You could dye them, but it's more work. Just paint it black with black lacquer. And we're going to turn, here in a little bit, we're going to turn the top and the bottom for one of these. Probably end up being maybe this guy, which will fit it to, or whichever. But as that lacquer dries, we'll let that dry for a few minutes. This guy is almost dry, this one. And I'm going to take the hairdryer to this guy really quick, because I want to go ahead and show you how this starts to pop as soon as you get a coat of lacquer. You see how dull this guy is right now, other than the wet spot? So let's get a coat of lacquer on there. I'm going to hair dry this paint down, and I'm going to set this guy back off to the side for a minute. I got lots of things going on. We got lots of room out here today, so that's all good. The reason I have a hairdryer handy, other than for projects like this, is that sometimes when it's super humid here, my camera lenses fog up in the morning when I turn them on. And so I have to take a hairdryer and get the condensation out of the back side of the lens in my cameras. So let's dry this guy off. There might be a little noise. Let's see if we can't dry this down real quick. We'll go to high. Yeah, I know we're rushing it just a little bit, but that's okay. So again, these colors on the wood, the only way to get rid of that would be to sand it back away or turn it back away. That one spot's still a little. Let's spread that out. See if we can't get that to dry. I'm not worried about the finish. Okay, and Don says, on the Aspen bowl, would you add color over the large black blob to change the appearance? What would you do? On the Aspen bowl, like here, is what you're probably referring to. Any other color you put over top of the black, you're not going to see. It's going to disappear. You just won't be able to see it. Realistically, if I don't like the look of it, I would just dye the whole thing black or paint it black and do something different with it. Turn it into a cloud bowl or something like that. So here, because I've got so many other colors in, if I had had this big black blob to start with and nothing else, I probably would have tried to pull like a tie-dye starburst kind of pattern off of it to make that look reasonable. And if it didn't look reasonable, then I would just go to a whole different protocol. I would change how it looks. I'd either, like I say, dye the whole thing black or paint the whole thing black, because I got too big an area right in here. And I'm sure that's the area you're referring to. Of course, this piece has a hole in it, which is cool in its own regard. So it's never ruined. You can always just make it a solid color. All right? But let's go ahead and throw some clear on this now. And I'll try and keep it off a Mr. Dixon's Easy Wood Tools chuck. And let's see what this starts to look like. Hopefully you'll start to see the difference on how, and I'm hitting this fairly hard with the lacquer. Now again, this color pattern is nothing to get excited about. And it's, you know, it's soaking into the end grain really fast, and it's sitting on top of the paint a lot. Right here in the end grains, it's soaking in really quick. Would yellow streaks after lacquer come out? A little bit, but they tend to still disappear. And another thing I learned, and let me think about how to say this. I learned that if you, let's say you had, let's say I had yellow, and I put the lacquer on, and yellow and blue make green. If I put blue on, I would get green stripes because it still changes the color. The color spectrum prism changes through the lacquer, so you're not going to get, you're going to get the color combination, not the individual color, as you add colors over top in the primaries especially. So the yellows probably will not show up on top even with the lacquer, unfortunately. It hasn't been my experience that they would. Pop back here, we'll hit this end grain again, because it's like a sponge right now. Okay, and I'll pull that up to about there. And you can see it gets, you know, it's really soaking in the lacquer right here. But with, you know, once we had that filled, then it would start to get some interesting look to it. So we'll set this back over here, out of the way. Just let it do its drying thing. Since it's so nice out, I may crack the door so I don't kill myself with the lacquer fumes in here today. Hang on, I'm gonna open a window, so to speak, because it's not too bad. I'm a little fresh air in here. Who knows, maybe one of the neighborhood cats will come in and join us. You never can tell. Put that back down there. All right, so we sprayed that guy. Let's see if it is dry. Yep, so this one is already dry. Okay, so the question is, today what I learned is that the black doesn't go out so much. Let me put this back in the overhead. It doesn't, the alcohol base dries so fast, I can't chase it around. The water base I could truly chase. You can see how I chase this all over the place. This alcohol base is not doing that for me. It's just not doing it. So what I'm going to try and do here, I know it may mess it up a little bit, but who knows? It's just a piece of wood. I'm going to take and put some more squiggles on, some more lines. And we're just going to leave these here. It's just going to be kind of an overlay. And I've kind of got an idea. It may be a good idea, it may be a bad idea. You never know. Because I wasn't getting the effect. Now this, you know, I know that I, again, can sand all this off. To Don, to your question about if I had a big blob, and I'll do it on this guy. So let's say I had a big blob of black right here. And I wasn't happy with that. Then I would start to pull legs out of it. You see how I've got this run going down here? And I might try and make it into the basis of a pattern. Okay? So instead of being just a big black blob, you get to make something out of it. Okay? And that's really kind of cool. That's not bad at all the way that worked out. There's something to that. Actually, I kind of like that. I'm going to do another one right here. Don't be afraid to experiment. Again, you can always take the sander to it and sand it off of there. Okay. This has kind of got more of the Halloween-esque pattern going on. So I'm going to put another big blob right in here and do the same thing again. And it's going to have those other real fine streaks underneath it. And this will dry really quick. And I think what we'll do is once I do this, I'm going to go around this whole thing and do this goofy stuff. And we're going to set this off and let it dry. And I'm going to turn a top and a bottom for the teal piece. And the beauty of this is you can always come along as you're going. And if there's a spot you don't like, you want to add something to, like say you want to come off of there, you can just add some more character to it. And underneath, we have that very fine layer. It's down underneath all these heavier strokes now. So that's going to give us a lot of depth. And again, it's just experiment and practice and try. And I said I haven't done it in a long time. This die does work completely different than what I used to use. So, you know, I'm on a learning curve here today. What do I do with this stuff? How do I make it do interesting things? It's the process that helps you learn. And like I say, you're going to make some that are ugly along the way, and that's just part of it. You get used to that. Okay, so this has got there's a big kind of a blob up in here. I got up to the top there. I don't really think I can do too much with that one. I may just live with that. I just think of it, I personally, it's a very organic kind of look and process. And it's just unique and different. So again, as you see, the lighter layers down below of the black the original dye. So I'll set this off. We'll set both of these away. And we're going to let them dry. But it's got an interesting pattern to it for what it is. That's right. My mom says there's just no mistakes, just design opportunities. Yeah, Mom, that's true. But of course, I have to admit I have made some pure D mistakes before too. That's just, there's no way around that one sometimes. So I'm getting a few things out here. I'm going to try something I hadn't tried before. I always love trying new things. Always, always, always. And today, so I've got this block of sycamore, and I was going to put it on, I want to put it on a worm screw, right? There's a lot of ways you could go about this. I mean, there's 100 different ways we could mount this guy up. I was going to put it on a worm screw, but it's not perfectly round. I was like, well, where's the center? So how do I find the center that it's the most closest to true? And I thought, well, let's try something different. So I'm going to put this in a set of the easy jaws, the big easy jaws, to get what is the center of the whole mass. Drill my hole, mount it on a worm screw, and then we'll turn this, and hopefully I can cut this in half. It's got a big split right here in the middle anyway. So if I'm lucky, I can make a top and a bottom out of this piece. They don't need to be very thick, especially the bottom piece. So it's kind of something different that I felt like trying. And so that's what I'm going to do. Just to experiment. So I'm going to pop the jaws off of here. Would crackle and hammered enamel work for base coat? It would. Matter of fact, I've got hammered black right here, as a matter of fact, because I was painting the headstock hammered black and the tool rest yesterday. That would work. There's a lot of different things. There's a lot of different ways to go about this. This is just the one way that I have done in the past. It is not the way or the only way by any means. It is a way. There's a lot of different methods for doing these type of patterns, or any type of pattern that you come up with. One of the best things I think you can do is go get a book on faux finishing. The one that I use as a reference is called Recipes for Surfaces. And my brother and his wife used to do faux finishing for a living. And they had real fancy high-end clients. And that was the book that they suggested I buy. And I did. Recipes for Surfaces. And a lot of good ideas in there. I mean, you can use sponges. You could use crinkled up paper. There's a whole bunch of different ways to go about this. With the dye, same thing. You can use the dyes and get all these different patterns. So don't think this is the only way that you can go about this. All right? Because by no means is that true. And I think, I'm going to check all these buttons. I think we can use this just as it is. That one's loose. So yeah, lots of different ways. Get a surface or texture, faux finishing. Even go to library or go buy whatever, and you'll find a lot of different methods that you can use. And it's always fun to experiment, and some might work better than others. You just have to experiment and see. I think I'm going to take the gloves off in just a second. So I just want to hold this in whatever's closest to its natural center. And I probably let's see if we can get it in there. Be my luck that I'm one setting off getting this to go in. Nope, there we go. Okay, I'm gonna take these gloves off. Jeff Peters, you made it. Good morning. You watch on your lunch break, and my buddies harass me asking if I'm watching my knitting show. Well, the next time we come to Milwaukee, tell your buddies to come to the show. We'll discuss this knitting show. How's that? Okay, so you can see here from the end camera, I've just got this guy mounted in the jumbo jaws, big easy jaws. And not all of the jaws are touching, but all I really want to do is drill a hole in the center here, okay? Find a nice true center. And hopefully that's going to be, that doesn't look in focus. I must have moved that. Let's see. I bet I did move it. That might get more in focus when I go there. I think I moved it back because I set the focus. That looks a little better now that I moved it. I set the focus to manual. Let's see if that's not a little bit better. And we'll throw up the tailstock because we're going to be using it a little bit here anyway. And we'll put in our Jacob's chuck. And we'll just drill a little hole in here. Wherever I put the Jacob's chuck, there it is. Boy, with it being cold out here, everything feels wet because it's warming up and condensing. And I have a drill bit over here somewhere. I thought I was all organized. There it is. I've got the worm screw right here. And if I look at the shaft, this one is a little small, okay? Now, this sycamore is fairly soft. So if I drill it just a little bit small, and I'm pushing it because I'm a little bit under, if the wood is soft, you want to drill a slightly smaller hole. If the wood is hard, you want to drill a slightly larger hole. If I come to the small end, that would be too big because that bit, this is a 21/64, so it just happened to be laying around, is about the size of the outer edge of the threads. So I'm going to go with the big end, and we'll see if it'll cut the threads when we put it on there. Hopefully it will. Everything is stiff. It was about 30 degrees here this morning, which for down here is cold. Bridget and I were up at my parents' house there, who were in here this morning. We were up there for Christmas, and we actually had a white Christmas in North Georgia, had a little bit of snow. It was really fun. We had a great time. All right, let's give ourselves a little bit of speed here. Just thought I'd try this as a different method. Because the piece isn't round anyway. Take that back out. Pop this out of here real quick. Come back up here. So Jeff says we didn't get snow till last night in Wisconsin. Are the yellow and black bumpers different? Yes, they have to be in perfect order, just like mine, as you see. Jeff, you know, I always keep my bumpers in yellow, black, yellow, black, yellow, black. They must be that way, yellow, black, yellow, black, yellow, black. I've been asked that before. The first time I ever was asked that, I thought, really? I mean, is this really the question? We could ask Doug, if Doug's still in here, why they have to be yellow black. They don't, as you would know. Pop these guys off. So here's a crazy thing with me changing. I'm working on the studio all the time, so I put it together, tear it apart, work on it more, tear it apart, put it back together, and my 16-inch version of my jaws, my Big Easy jaws, I'm missing one jaw. Now, what in the world did I do with one jaw? All right, how could I lose just one out of all of them? Beats me. I have no idea. How we doing on time? 12:06. Oh, we're all good. It's going to be it's going to warm up. It's going to be nice around here. So put my worm screw down in here. And my goal is to see if I can't get both the top and the bottom for one of these out of this one piece. That's my goal. I may or may not be able to do it. We'll see. First, we've got to see if we can get this thread on there or not. See if it's going to make a liar out of me today. Because these are self-tapping threads, and it is threading on there, so perfect. Because this wood is so soft. And I'll go to the overhead, you can see it winding itself in. And with the worm screw like this, what it does is when it comes tight to the face of the jaws, you have the semblance of the surface of a faceplate, but with only one screw. And so you don't want to over tighten here, right? If I keep tightening and tightening and tightening, I might strip it out because, again, this wood is soft. So don't make it too tight. You just want to get it snug, okay? And we're going to bring our tailstock into play. First, I have to put banjo on here. Kind of hard to turn without a tool rest. This is just a blank that was wrapped in cellophane out there in the storage. Again, I think it's sycamore, so on and so forth. It's just something to work with. It's definitely not round. What I am going to do is move these dies that are open away so I don't fill them with wood chips entirely. I'll put them over here. So first thing, of course, we'll get this round, and then we'll go from there for making our top and our bottom. And let's see what kind of speed it likes. Hopefully it's not an issue. Shouldn't be too big or out of balance. Yeah, so we can turn about 900 and we'll get this round. Okay, good deal. I'll put you into the overhead. I'll take a quick sip of water. I'm glad that it's warm enough that I could actually open the door today. Let that lacquer fumes go out. I may actually have to turn my fan on, but I think I'm okay. And so the camera looks like it's not showing the back side of this. So it's easier to move the lathe going the wrong way than the camera. There we go. We just have to adjust as necessary. We can use any tools we want. Since we have a representative of Easy Wood Tools here today, we will rough this round with the Easy Wood mid-size rougher. Especially for Mr. Dixon, if Mr. Dixon is still with us. I like to give Doug a hard time. Doug's a good guy. Okay. And we're just going to come in here. I start on one end. This wood is quite soft. And I just use half the cutter. Take a nice light cut. So I have to laugh. I moved all the dye out of the way, right? And I'm sitting here with wet lacquer on one of these pieces or whatever, all those pieces, and throwing wood chips and dust all over the place there. So this is not the perfect finish. You obviously wouldn't spray your lacquer and put the piece a foot away from where you're turning your piece of wood. But hey, what do you do when you don't have enough space? Okay, so there's our basic. We've got it round. Okay, we'll come in here and clean up the bottom end. We'll make a tenon on it with the end camera here. Hopefully that's looking good for you. We'll just come across here and clean this up. Okay. Pop tailstock out of the way. It's pretty quarter sawn sycamore on the end. Looks nice. So what I'll do is I'll make a tenon on this end, 2 3/8 inch tenon, and then I'll part all the way through this guy back up in here where the crack is, and then I'll put another tenon on the next piece, and then we'll have our top and our bottom with our tenons already made and ready to turn to fit the piece. All right. Do-do-do-do. So that's all good. So I'll get my calipers out. I messed up last week, so I'm going to be a little more careful checking my measurement today. I made it just a little too small last week by a fuzz. Just give myself a quick reference there. I make one light cut. Check that. A little big. Always safe, better safe than sorry. That'll work. Okay. Now I'm not going to take all this wood away, and I'm going to keep the tenon a little short, just so I have plenty of wood to work with for my top and my bottom. I don't know which is going to be which here. Okay. Little dovetail on there. Mark the center. That should do the trick. Okay. Now we'll cut this guy in half. Dick Gerard, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Raymond Schwartz, are you twice turning the cylinders? I might have missed that. Well, I'm going to cut the cylinder in half. The cylinders, these cylinders, if that's what you're referring to, they were bored with a Forstner bit and then turned on the outside. If that's what you were referring to, Raymond. All right. Let's see if we can part through this guy. It's kind of far through there, but let's see what we can do. We're going to use the Carter & Son 16th inch parting tool. Right in the split, we'll go in the overhead for that. There's a split right there. Okay, so that's what we're gonna cut this guy in half. Make a little relief. I love this parting tool. Slow it down just a little bit. Looks like I'm almost there. Boom. Perfect. Just what we wanted. So there's either one lid or one base. Got a tenon on it already, ready to roll. Come up here, we'll put a tenon on this end of this guy. It is beautiful wood. It's beautiful quarter sawn sycamore in this grain. You could, if you had pretty wood like this, you could make a beautiful birdhouse project, and if you had beautiful grain structure, you know, this die part of it could go off the table entirely, and just do it in a really pretty natural wood. The project is still fun regardless of whether you color it or not. Okay. Tool rest just a fuzz low now. Doo-doo-doo-doo. There we go. Flatten that off. All right. Put a dovetail on her. Mark the center. And we are ready to change gears. All right. Let's see here. Pop, pop. Come on. There we go. Pop back up there. We are almost through this year, gang. We're almost out of this crazy 2021. Can't be soon enough. Oh yeah, Brad, it's not on a tenon, it's on a worm screw. So my thought probably is that this one that I'm taking off now that has a hole in the bottom, we'll make that probably the base. And we'll make a top out of this other one. Okay? If I haven't messed things up too much. So there's our worm screw part. We'll save this guy over here. Take our worm screw out. Beauty of a worm screw compared to a faceplate. With a faceplate, you've got 6 or 8 holes. With a worm screw, you've got 1. So a faceplate, you've got holes in a perimeter. Worm screw, you've got 1 hole right in the middle. All depending on what you're doing. Like, a lot of times, hollow form, small hollow form pieces, I'll use a worm screw because I just have the 1 hole to deal with. So super handy to use a worm screw for a lot of things. Richard Raffin, if you're familiar with him, if you watch some of his stuff, he'll use a worm screw and take things like on and off the lathe, or he'll mount things on with the lathe running. He just takes and just jams it up against the screw and it threads itself right on there. Kind of crazy. But then again, he's been doing it for a long time and done a bazillion pieces. Okay, so here's our first piece. Let's make this the lid, or the top, if you will, for whichever piece we want to. And I think since we're spraying lacquer on the purple one, let's make this a top for the teal one. All right, I think we'll do that. Okay, so first thing I want to do is get my inside calipers. They're supposed to be right here. I thought I had gotten them out. Maybe I didn't. I know I had planned to. Be my luck, I won't be able to find them now and I'll have to wing it. There they are, looking right at me. So I'll come in here with my inside calipers and get the idea of what I need for size. You can see me right in here, just setting that inside size, okay? And a couple ways you can go about it. I mean, what I'll like to do is I'll just take my outsides and match them to my insides now. And I'm not worried about getting the perfect, kind of without the table to put those on. I want myself a little margin for error. So let me see if you can see that. Leave myself just a little extra margin here. See a little extra gap, all right? Might even want to leave yourself a little bit more than that. So that's going to be what presses down in there. And we're going to turn a base here. We're going to turn our inner piece, which then we're going to turn that around and put that in a set of jaws and turn our actual lid once we have our fit for here. Are you with me there? Yeah, Jeff, my dad and I, we went and saw Richard Raffin up at a Woodcraft in Chattanooga, Tennessee. This was years ago. All day class, there was 6 of us, and it was $40 for the day. That was kind of hard to beat. He pretty much demonstrated, and we asked questions and watched and learned a ton. Okay, so again, I'm going to stay with my square carbide tool. It's the easiest thing to use for this. And then once I get this made, then I'll be able to test. You know, I kind of want to press fit. So I just want to get close. And then I'm going to put a little angle on it as well. Okay, so I may have messed up and gone too small. If it depends on how I did. See, remember I gave myself a little bit of latitude. Okay, perfect. That's gonna be just a press fit on there. So I'm gonna take and taper it just like, because it's gonna go in a set of jaws. Okay, and this is gonna be our lid. And when we're comfortable that this will press on the way we want it to, perfect. Okay, so there's our nice fit. All right. Now we're going to take it out. Take my goggles off for a second. Pop this guy out of here. Put our biggest jaws in this chuck, or change chucks. How big is that? Let's see, what do we got here? That's 4 inches, but I think we can get away with it. Instead of changing chucks, we'll just put our 3.5 inch jaws and open up. Let go. Keep those handy. Might need those again. I got extra special today. I got a text from my wife Bridget just like 2 minutes before I started that she's actually working in town here today at the library, and I get to have lunch. So did I? No, I didn't leave myself enough. That's what I was afraid of. Of course, I didn't leave myself quite enough out here. So good thing these are quick change jaws, right? The jaws won't quite fit in the slot that I left. Story of my life. That's why the Easy Wood chuck is so handy. If you make a mistake like that, it takes you all of 20 seconds to change your jaws around. Chunk the piece back in there. Take one more crazy silly cut. You know, there's a Nova Titan over there with a big set of jaws. It might have fit, but this is just as easy. Cover my tracks real quick like. I was trying to leave as much wood as possible to work with, and I was just a fuzz off. Loving my new goggles with the flip-up face shield. They're coming in tomorrow. The next batch is coming in tomorrow. So if any of you have them on order, they will be here tomorrow. And tomorrow's Tuesday, so that means I'll get them out to you on Wednesday. Okay, so this time before I completely commit, I'm going to make sure that that drops down in there. That's what I should have done the first time, was double check that with the jaw. You can always check with the jaw, make sure it's going to fit. I just was talking and not thinking. Not the end of the world. So I get to start working on the woodworking shows videos here pretty soon. Woodworking shows is going to be doing 4 shows. Yeah, Dad, we're going uptown. Woodworking shows going to be doing 4 virtual shows in February, 4 weekends in February with the virtual shows. And I'll have classes through Spirocraft there. We'll have courses that I'll be filming up in January, and be doing a bundle package where whatever I'm teaching, whatever the course covers, as part of the course, paid course, these are some paid courses. There'll be free ones as well. So some of the paid courses will have, you'll get the course along with whatever supplies you might need, like be it dyes or colors or a special tool, whatever. Haven't come up with them yet. You'll get all the componentry for the project as part of the package. So that's going to be pretty cool. And then as some general content, I'm going to start editing. I've got like 3 years of multi-camera footage from the woodworking shows, and I'm going to start editing that up and send that out up to them, and they'll be putting it on my instructor page on the woodworking shows website, and that's going to be great. So I'm going to have a busy January. I'm actually going to go back up to North Georgia where I was. I got to make a hole in my schedule and go up there and get some green wood. I'm ready for some green wood. Okay, so here's our top. Let's make a profile. Let's make something that looks kind of cool. Let's see what we can come up with. Yes, we have a 10 in here. We can work this whole shape from this corner. We can work from here, and we've got the 10 in here, and we might make a little cone. So in this piece, you can see how I made a shape like that. Whatever suits your fancy, and it has a nice flow to it. I don't have a plan here. I'm just going to start turning and cutting and see what we come up with. All right, change tools here. Let's go to a little bowl gouge. Let's just go to a little Carter & Son bowl gouge. Maybe they call a 1/2 inch. Some worlds is a 3/8. We'll stay overhead for a moment till we get this corner rounded off of here. Turn her up there. Drop this down a little bit more. The Carter & Son tools, M42 high-speed steel, wonderful tools. What I want to do is join up. I want to join this profile out here with this height in here, and then I'll figure out what I'm going to do. Stop and adjust the tool rest, a little bit better angle. So you can see you make quick work of that. So if I wanted to make a kind of a cone shape like I had there, I can just come right on around here, start roughing out some ideas. about, so the wall thickness I have here, back here, that's the overhang, and there's nothing wrong with that. Looks like it's about a 1/2 inch, give or take. So that's not too bad. Nothing wrong with that. Beautiful piece of wood. I'm going to move that over there out of the way. Still on the end camera. Yep. Looks like it's in focus for you, okay? Now, if you have the carbide tools, I'd be using the round tool. If you don't have a conventional style tools, these round carbide cutters are great for shaping like this as well. We'll bring this back up to the center. I like to show both different styles of tools because not everybody has everything. Some have one, some have the other. They will all get the job done. Okay. In the little hook, we leave a little spot for the hook to go in here. Now, I've been going fast, so I didn't take any time to measure thicknesses in here, things like that. I don't have much left here. There's plenty of wood in the middle. So I think we're going to leave it somewhere around there. Now, I am going to need a cleaner cut with the high-speed steel tool. So I'll come back. And actually, I'm going to switch over. I like to use the smaller one when I get down here sometimes. Give myself a little more speed. Clean that surface up. Okay, and that would be ready for a quick sand. There's a little ridge right there, a little hump. See if we can't fix that up. I don't want to take too much more out of this. There we go. Okay. And now I'll clean up, I'll switch cameras. So that's where we'll put our little eyelet. We'll save that for later. We switch it to the overhead. And I want to come and clean up this edge and this back face. Okay, got that clean. Get this flat and clean it up. Now normally I would go ahead and sand that all up while it's right there. I'm not going to do that right now. So theoretically our lid should be ready to install. How am I doing on time? 12:38. Let's see if our lid goes on here like it's supposed to. Our roof pops right on there. Cool beans. Our birdhouse has overhang, and I'll show you here in the overhead camera. So you've got a nice shape there. Little overhang so the birdies don't get wet. All that good stuff. There is a little extra room underneath here, but you know, you're not going to be looking up underneath there. You could really, if you, it's hard to find because think about the wall thickness here. To have that be a perfect match when the walls are so thin, to have a jaw that's that thin. Hey, John Phillips, good morning. But so there we go. There's our top. Again, a nice little profile. And again, if I didn't want a natural, I would just take black lacquer, spray paint, and just paint this guy up black. Okay. So let's set that right there for the moment, and we'll work on our base. So let's see here. We haven't turned our other part here yet, have we? All right, quick change of jaws. It's actually getting amazingly warm in here. I get cooked by the northern light coming in here this time of day. Almost could turn the air on. That's hard to believe. It was 30 degrees this morning and I could use air conditioning now. That's kind of amazing. And again, like I say, I'm just kind of moving fast because of the time. You could refine your shapes and play with them. Just whatever suits your fancy is all good. All right, now since we have our bottom here, let's do this again. Get our inside measurement, and I'll just drop into the overhead here. You can see my inside calipers. Reach right in there. Okay, that's nice and snug. And I'll just come over here and adjust these. Make it quicker. There we go. So let's get this guy cleaned up. Now we've got a hole in the middle here, but that's going to be inside where you won't see it. Anyway, let's get this guy cleaned up on the end. So we'll go to the end camera. Clean up this face. Yeah, the headstock looks a lot better, Art, doesn't it, than being beat up like it used to be? Do. Should be just about right for what we want to do now. If I really wanted to not have any extra, you could, though the jaws won't fit, you could use a parting tool here and cut your tenon to have a much narrower cut. And I could also this has got the radius cutter on it though, so that won't work. Just trying to think about ways I could have a smaller insert there, smaller gap. But what we can do is, there's a lot of ways you can do this outside piece. So I'm going to cut this to fit. There we go. Okay. Now, a couple ways I could go about this. That's my fit right there. And I could just have this taper away from that point and turn away the bottom eventually, grabbing that other side. So a lot of different ways you can go about the base. I don't necessarily have a perfect plan. So here's what I'm going to do with this one today. I know I'm reaching over in front of you there. Take this excess wood away. Now I know that my wall, I could get real particular here if I really wanted to. And I could check this wall thickness and set a wall thickness and make a line right there. I'm not going to get that particular today. But you could if you weren't racing the clock. Clean that up a little bit. So, make a nice cut so you get a nice finish right there. And we'll go ahead and test this now, since we're getting close. And we'll see, I'll take you to the overhead. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. That's pretty darn close. If I take you back to the end, you can see, it pretty much matches up real nice. And whatever you do here, well, that's up to you. From the design standpoint, it doesn't have to have a basic. I made some that just had a little plug that wasn't very big at all, just a little piece of wood in the bottom. Others had a bigger base. If you wanted, it's all up to you. The key is about having the fit and having this point right here. This joint look nice. This is the joint that needs to look nice. And like I say, so we've got our press fit on there. So we got that. That's good to go. And I think I'll just turn some more of this away, and then I'll turn it around and grab the bottom of it, or grab the inside and clean up the bottom. And we'll have our base. So let's take this guy off of here. And probably I'll go right, you can't see in that camera, I'll probably go right here and make this base smaller than the lid, or about the same. You could get into design theory all you want. Whatever you come up with is what's the right thing. If it looks good to you, take it to your club. They'll tell you if your proportions are right or not. Dust in my eyes. All right, let's get that out of there. Let's just take this away. And you could make this as fancy as you want. You could get your texturing tools out and do all kinds of stuff. Whatever suits your fancy, okay? Again, I would sand this either now or after this next stage. Let's see if we can hold it with the same jaws when we turn it around. Let's see if these will go out big enough. Or do we have to change? Not the perfect grip, then again, this is not anything. You see we have a big gap here in our jaws, but there's not much stress going on here. Not like a big, giant, heavy bowl with anything going on. Okay, well, thank you, Sandon. Appreciate that. Thank you for joining us. Always a pleasure. Love having you here. And I think I'm going to come at this way a little bit first. Might even put a little recurve on there, who knows. Now let's just go ahead and take all this away. Okay, so now I'll switch you over to the end camera. Spin this around about like so. Now, if you think you might not hang it, but set it on a flat surface, you want to make this slightly recurved or concave. So just make that slightly concave. Take your tool. Make sure you've got a little daylight right there. Okay, so that could be a base. That's such pretty wood. It'd almost be fun to do some of the sycamore, do a all natural or something. I don't know. I'm just kind of really liking the way this wood looks today. I'm just going to clean up this little edge right here, just a fuzz. Okay. So the top and the bottom don't really take very long. They're pretty simple. Doesn't take big pieces of wood. If you're going to paint it, it doesn't matter what kind of wood it is. And there's your piece with your just standard. There's your top and your bottom set on there. Again, a little bit of glue. Pop you right in there. I would paint these, although this is really pretty wood, but I don't think it would match. But that's the basic premise on how to make your tops and bottoms. And like this guy, let's do a little bit more. What time is it? 12:52. Don't have too much time left. Let's see. What else could I show you? Back on this guy, we were letting it dry. We give you an oversight in here. I'm in with the overhead camera. I don't know if you can kind of get to understand, and it's going to be out of focus, but you get to see the depth in the different layers. And so now that I have sprayed this with the lacquer, I would come back in here and do some more. Do another layer of colors again, or say black in this case. And it would keep building that depth because, like I say, it's going out of focus when I hold it up. I'm going to come up to the front camera. It's on autofocus. And you might be able to, I'll watch and see what happens as I bring it up here. There's not a lot of light. If I can find the right, but you can kind of see the depth in there. There you go. Again, there's not a lot of light in here and right up against the camera here. But you see how you build the layers, and you can just do this over and over and over. And so one of the keys, if you want to build a lot of the depth, and I'll turn this and see what we get, is don't do a lot per layer, okay? So keep your layers of color. Don't do a lot of your pattern in each layer because it will fill up really quick. And so if you want more depth, do multiple layers that have just a little bit of squiggles and lines or whatever your patterns are, and keep those minimal per layer and go for the aggregate as you build the depth, and then it'll look like, you're going after that. It looks like it's a foot deep kind of approach. So it's a great fun project. Again, lesson learned for myself today is that the alcohol-based dyes, which I think are great, but they do not like to be chased with air. They dry too fast. A water-based aniline dyes, which are readily available. Don't ask me what the names right now on the market, but I know they're out there. I haven't bought any because I haven't had to buy dye in a while. And my old supplier doesn't sell them anymore. But I know you can find them. Use a water-based dye. You can chase it around for the longest time, and it actually washes off a little bit easier. It's a better choice for this particular product or project. And then the lacquer, spray lacquer, you don't sand between your coats of lacquer. Just spray another one on there. Don't worry about it. Only turn and sand the wood to 220 when you start with your first coat. Now down here, and this one is still pretty rough, and you can still see a wet spot on it. Like I say, if I don't like that, I just paint the whole thing black and then do something different to it. It's not the end of the world. But don't sand between your layers. When you get all the layers on you want, then build up another half a dozen layers of clear, and you don't have to sand between those either. Build up a half a dozen layers at least. I used to do lots and lots of layers, but you guys probably aren't going to want to spend the time. I mean, I would put like 30 layers on a piece, 30 layers of coats of lacquer, and if it was a fancy one, I might put 60. For those big heavy pieces, I use acrylic cab lacquer from Sherwin-Williams. It used to be called C75. I'm not sure what the designation is now. It's got a lot of UV inhibitor. If you just aerosol version, the Chromacraft is great. It's got a lot of UV inhibitors in it as well. If you're just doing, say half a dozen coats, you'd easily get that out of a can. And let that dry. Let it dry for a month, and then polish with your polishing system, whatever you're using to finish the finish. Steel wool it, then polish it. I like to use the 3M Perfect-It system and polish that, and it will look like glass, and it'll look like it's a foot deep. All right. Brian, yep, you're welcome, Brian. It's a great project, and Happy New Year to you. Looks like it's 12:56. If anybody's got any questions they want to throw into the comment column before we wrap it up, I'd be happy to answer them. I'll give it a couple of minutes because there is a 30-second delay between when I talk and when you hear it, and back and forth. But it's a great project, lots of fun. This one came out well. I'm really happy with, as much as I poo-poo, I'm getting tired of turning this sycamore, but it really is pretty wood. Let me go to the end camera here, and you can see that pretty grain in that. And even the bottom, the bottom is this nice looking piece of wood. It's kind of funny how sometimes the part you never see is the best looking piece of the wood. All right, it's got some nice quarter sawn flecks in there. Fun project. Really enjoyed it. Thank you, Don. Have a happy New Year yourself. It's good fun, and like I say, keep up with me. I'll be out here next week. Monday Methods isn't going to stop. Since we're going virtual with the woodworking shows, Monday Methods will be here every week on Monday, even in February when we're doing the woodworking shows. I'll be in this studio a lot. If you happen to be listening, I am going to do maybe a few last-minute new discounts in the Spiracraft shop. Post that up today. I'll post it in the Monday Methods Wood and Resin Turning group. Some super specials there. If you're a member, you'll get to see that. And look for an email from us coming out. Got to think about it over lunch, what I do. Mary Alice, you've been hiding out there. Thank you. Glad you enjoyed it. Have a Happy New Year, and I hope you had a great Christmas. Thank you, Lewis. Appreciate you hanging with us today and watching. Thank you, Joe. Okay, guys, let's turn this thing off. I'll send you to an overhead of this piece of sycamore, just kind of like that, as I say good day. And everybody have a great New Year's, and I'll see you next week in 2021. Let's get this other one out of the door and down the road. Y'all take care, and thank you for joining me today.